Hare Krishna. Let us just put this music down for a minute.
Hare Krishna.
How are you guys?
We are fine. How's everyone else? How's everyone on your side?
Yeah, they're all good. Kids came, they moved house now. The older one, they bought a house near a temple. So I got a card and I got some flowers, and I'm sure you guys would have been spoiled rotten as well. Yeah. So
Yeah.
did Raga also call?
Yeah, we had a Google Meet call with all the family, which was really nice.
Yeah.
It's really good. So spoke to Rasa Krishna in D-Land.
Yeah, how's he doing his time in D-Land?
Yeah, they've got 16 cows there.
Huh?
They have 16 cows, 16 cows.
Really? Have they come back? Because we heard
Yeah. Yeah, all the cows come back. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. That's really good news.
Yeah. So he's looking after the cows.
Thank you. And to you as well.
All glory.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that 16 cows come back to D-Land now.
Yeah, all the cows came back. They came back actually quite quickly. I think there was some problem which occurred, which was obviously what Guru Maharaj wanted. He wanted them to be a problem where they were, so they all came back.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, so it was really good. So
everybody was upset. That's what Guru Maharaj's dream was. That's why he actually got D-Land place, isn't it? Initially, it was to do with cows because there was one cow that he wanted to keep, and then he thought we may as well get a nice place so that he can look after. So brilliant.
Yeah, we
need not worry. Guru Maharaj will sort it all out, whether in his Bapu form or in his Vani form,
Absolutely. So something I wanted to share, if I may. So there was one of our god sisters. She had asked, I think it was from the call this morning, from the glorification this morning.
Yeah.
She's from Siberia.
She was from Siberia, yeah. Naina Manjari Mataji. She shared something really beautiful. I don't know who was on the call this morning.
I wasn't. Keep it calm,
Yeah. But she shared that she asked Guru Maharaj about chanting, and he basically said that when you chant, you imagine that I am in your heart and I'm listening to you. Nice. And he said that's what he does. He imagines and he feels that Srila Prabhupada is in his heart and listening to his chanting.
Okay, right, do you want to put something on view, yeah, I know, they can't see us.
So, Rajesh Krishna, you want to welcome?
Vrinda Vilasini, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mukundari. So we have at least 10 people who have joined in, so we can just welcome them. Hari Bol for all making time on this lovely day, lovely sunny day, Mother's Day as well. When we're going to be glorifying our father, our Guru Maharaj, and I hear the little Naina is going to be singing one of the songs that Guru Maharaj sang. So we're going to quickly make people co-hosts. So a little change of plan. Instead of sang, Yadurani is going to be reading Guru Maharaj's Ocean of Mercy. So you want to make Yadurani co-host. And Mukundari Prabhu, co-host, just in case there's any problems with sound or anything that Prabhuji can then take over. And Balram Kripa Prabhu, you have? Okay. And Radha Vinod Prabhuji, Hari Bol. Radha Vinod Prabhuji ki jai. Dandavat pranams, Champaglat Mataji. You are on mute. We can't hear you.
We just came from the temple, so
Oh, okay.
He's
Anyway,
getting ready. He's coming.
no problems. Welcome, both of you. And okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to let Balram Kripa Prabhu as the pinned up so that, yeah, Balram Kripa Prabhu, you want to put your video on so Bhakta Nayan can sing. Would you like to also introduce Bhakta Nayan, please, for us? I know he's only 10 and he's gorgeous, as we can see.
I'm
That's
Nayan.
Nayan.
I'm Nayan.
Haribo.
They have been into Krishna consciousness very childhood, actually, very young age. And
Thank
they've
you,
always
boys,
been
for
interested
coming.
in our Guru Maharaj, and they've always been interested in our Guru Maharaj's bhajans and kirtans. So he sings as a manner as well. Nayan sings as a manner.
Good, very good. Good boy.
And we're going to sing the bhajan today, which Guru Maharaj used to sing. Manaso Deho.
Okay. Jo Kuchita, yeah, that's a very nice one. So the meaning, is anybody going to read the English meaning first? It's about that, whatever I have is, Nayan, have you got a little meaning in English that you're able to read, or you even better on phone? So over to Bhakta Nayan.
We've got the meaning in English.
Okay.
The translation.
Translation first. Okay, great. So Nayan, we're going to welcome you with 3 Haribols. You are the youngest guest appearance or the guest on this program. So Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. All our blessings with you, and over to you now.
Hare Krishna. Okay, do the translation first. Do the, no more.
On the left.
No. Yeah.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavani Prashyata Deshacharine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sakti Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Radha Ki Jai.
This is the translation.
This is the translation for man also. Mind, body, and family, whatever may be mine, I have surrendered at your lotus feet, O youthful son of Nanda. In good fortune or in bad, in life or at death, all my difficulties have been disappeared by choosing those feet of yours as my only shelter. Slay me or protect me. Slay me or protect me, as you wish, for you are the eternal master of servants. If it is your will that I be born again, then may it be in the home of your devotee. May I be born again, even as a worm, so long as I remain your devotee. I have no desire to be born as a Brahma averse to you. I yearn for the company of that devotee who is completely devoid of all desire for worldly enjoyment or liberation. Father, mother, son, preceptor, and husband, you are everything to me. Thakura Bhagati Vinoda, O Kana, please hear me. O Lord of Radha, you are my life and soul.
Now the bhajan.
Ready? Mano sude ho geho jyoki chumo or pilu tua pade nanda kisor. Mano sude ho geho jyoki chumo or पीलो तू आपदे नंद किशोर संपदे विपदे जीवने मरोने धाय माम गेला तुआ उपधु भरोने संपदे विपदे जीवने मरोने दाय माम गेला तुआ उपधु भरोने मानो सोदे हो गे हो जो किछु मोर और पीलो तो आपदे नंद किशोर मारो भी राखो भी जो इच्छा तोहारा नित्य दासो प्रति तू अधिकारा
मारो
भी राखो भी जो इच्छा तोहारा नित्य प्रति तू अधिकारा मानो सोदे हो गे हो जो किछु मोर और पीलो तू आपदे नंद किशोर जामाओ भी मोये इच्छा झारी तोर भक्तो घिरे झनी जमा हो मोर जानो मोये इच्छा झारी तोर भक्तो घिरे झनी जमा हो मोर मानो सुदे हो गे हो जो किछु मोर और पीलो दुआ पादे नंद किशोर होए जथा दुअदाश बहे मुक्तो ब्रह्मा जमे नाही आशो तो जन्मा होए जथा दुअजास बहे मुक्त ब्रह्मा जन्मे नाही आशा मानो सोदे हो गे हो जो किछु मोर और पीलो दुआ पादे नंद किशोर भुक्ति मुक्ति स्पृह विहीन जे भक्त लाभयत्ये तको संगानुराग योगी मुक्ति स्प्रिया विहीन जे भक्त लाभयत्ये तको संगानुराग जानक जानी धरी ततनाया प्रभु गुरुपति तू सर्वमोय जानक जानी धरी ततनाया प्रभु गुरुपति तू सर्वमोय मानो सोदे हो गे हो जो किछु मोर और पीलो दुआ पादे नंद किशोर भगति विनोदा कोहे सुनो गाना राधा नाथ तू हमारा परान भगति विनोदा कोहे सुनो काना राधा दाता तू हमारा मरान मानो सोदे होगे हो जो किछु मोर और पीलू तू आपदे नंद किशोर मानो सोदे होगे हो जो किछु मोर और पीलू तू आपदे नंद किशोर मानो सोदे होगे हो जो किछु मोर और पीलू तू आपदे नंद किशोर।
जय गुरु महाराज।
जय श्री कृष्ण।
जय श्री कृष्ण।
हरि बोल हरि बोल।
Hari Bol, that was brilliant. Thank you so very much. Lovely Bengali pronunciation. And who would have thought? It's only Guru Maharaj's potency and obviously your proud grandparents and you guys and your bhakti that's making you sing lovely, lovely bhajans like this at this very tender age. We are so proud of you and a big Hari Bol to you guys. Thank you so much for coming. We are very proud of you. You are already our God brothers, God sisters, God children, whatever you choose to call you, because you're singing Guru Maharaj's bhajans, right? So thank you, Balram Kripa, Madhumati Gopi. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Nain was very young. He was about 3 years old. And Guru Maharaj had come for Janmashtami. And Guru Maharaj was at the children function, children tent. And by mistake, Nain just ran in front of Guru Maharaj. And Guru Maharaj put the hand on Nain's head. And since then, he's always like Guru Maharaj Kirtan. Which one is the tune? He always sings. And I think when he comes to the manor, he sings as well.
Yeah.
So,
and one of the next few programs, we can always have him sing one of Guru Maharaj's bhajans next time or, next few months to come. So thank you so much again. We're all very proud of you, let alone just your grandparents. Thank you, Nayan. And what's your name? Next.
Oh, Liam.
Niam.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Niam, as well.
One is 10 years old, the other one is 11 years old. He's 11, he's 10.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great day, evening. Hare Krishna.
Sing for Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj.
Okay, next we have our dearest Yadurani Mataji, who's going to be very at a very short notice agreeing to read Ocean of Mercy because Bhakt Sanj is little tied down today. So over to Yadurani Mataji, and I believe we are reading from page 50, is it?
Yeah, page 50.
Okay, over to you, Yadurani.
I'm reading for 10 minutes, yeah?
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you so much for stepping in at the last minute.
That's okay, no worries. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. So reading from Ocean of Mercy, page 50. I felt that Raghav Pandit was speaking directly to me. It was all so appropriate to my situation. And I was impressed that a Westerner had so much knowledge about the Vedas and was quoting Sanskrit verses from the Bhagavad Gita as if he knew the entire scripture by heart. After class, we all sat conversing. Not many people visited Mayapur in those days, and the devotees were curious about what had brought me there. They were very encouraging and requested that I stay and become a devotee or at least give it a try. One of the brahmacharis, the single young male devotees, brought in a large plate of sweets and other delicacies and served all the devotees as they sat on the floor eating off leaf plates. The food was Mahaprasad, and I was told prasad that had come directly from the deities. I had never tasted anything so delicious. Even though the physical facilities in Mayapur were quite basic, I felt very much at home. I arose early the next morning, well before sunrise, and attended Mangalarti. Afterwards, I sat with the devotees and chanted japa for the first time. I had been familiar with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra since childhood. I had heard it sung and had joined many kirtans, and Anirdeshya Vaku had explained its spiritual significance to me in Calcutta, but I had never chanted quietly, counting my rounds on beads. At 7 o'clock, we all participated in Shringar Aarti, greeting the deities. Then we worshipped Srila Prabhupada in Guru Puja, and afterwards we gathered in the upstairs room for class. I was told that a sannyasi, a senior male renounced devotee, was going to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam, the most important Vaishnava scripture, which Srila Prabhupada had translated and on which he had written extensive commentary. In the room, a handsome young American on an elevated seat sang Jaya Radha Madhav. I had never heard the prayer, but I had learnt that the temple deities were named Sri Sri Radha Madhav. And now I saw that there was a link between Srimad Bhagavatam and the deities. It sounded amazing, sublime. The young sannyasi, like the devotee giving class the previous evening, was clearly knowledgeable, and he recited Sanskrit shlokas, verses, fluently and with authority. It was the first time I had experienced Westerners having such command of the Vedic scriptures. I was both awestruck and painfully aware of my own inadequacy in the subject. And I was also beginning to comprehend Srila Prabhupada's profound influence on his disciples. After class, the sannyasi greeted me with a smile and introduced himself as Satadhanya Swami. He had already heard about me, he said, and he expressed his pleasure in meeting me and joined the others in requesting that I remain with the devotees and become one myself. All the warm invitations, along with the wonderful spiritual atmosphere, attracted me greatly. Since I had already made up my mind to surrender to Srila Prabhupada, I thought, why not commit myself and stay? It was not difficult. I just went to a barber and had my head shaved, purchased a dhoti and kurta set, took a bath in the Ganga, threw away my old clothes, and put on the new ones. When I returned to the temple, everyone was surprised and delighted at my transformation. The first to see me was Bandhu Das, a talented painter from America, whom I had befriended the previous evening. Hey, he exclaimed, you shaved up and became a devotee. But then he added, no, you've always been a devotee. The Mayapur temple and community were managed by two co-directors, Jayapadak Swami and Bhavananda Goswami, both from America. Jayapadak Swami was quite young, Bhavananda somewhat older. I was introduced to them in an office where they sat side by side on a mattress on the floor surrounded by devotees. After a brief initial exchange, they gave me a form to fill out, asking my name, address, and other details. One point on the form especially impressed me, that I should never act in such a way that would bring dishonor or disgrace to Srila Prabhupada. That became deeply ingrained in my heart. Next, I was introduced to a young Italian brahmachari named Madhu Sevita Das, who served as a temple commander. Like a military commander, he appeared grave and stern, which I thought was quite befitting. He was responsible for assigning services to devotees, and the first service he gave me was to help cook khichdi, a mix of grains, dal, and vegetables that was distributed every afternoon to local villagers as part of a food distribution program. When I went to the kitchen and reported to the elderly Bengali devotee in charge of cooking, he examined me from head to toe. I could tell he was not impressed. He took me out back, pointed to a pile of firewood, directed me to bring the wood to the kitchen, and left. He had not told me how much to bring, so I just kept carrying one armful of wood after another, and by the time he returned, half the kitchen was filled. He gave me a disapproving, disgusted look and told me to take most of the wood back to the pile. Then he led me to the storeroom, asked me to bring bags of rice and dal to the kitchen, and again disappeared. The bags must have weighed 100 kilos each. There was no way I could even pick them up, let alone carry them to the kitchen. So I got hold of a bag and started to drag it across the floor. But along the way, it became stuck between the staircase and a pillar. I pulled as hard as I could to dislodge it, but it would not budge. And when I gave it one last heave, the bag broke and dal scattered all over the floor. Just then, of course, the managing devotee returned. When he saw the mess I'd made, he became so exasperated that he did not say a thing. He just gave me that look again, letting me know without words that he thought I was the most useless person he had ever met. My fumbling attempt at service, I felt, had caused only disappointment to the devotees. That was the beginning of my spiritual life in Mayapur. The next day, I was assigned to go out into a field with a few other devotees and cut the grass. Finally, I thought, a service I could execute without trouble. But when Bhavananda Maharaj heard what I had been assigned to do, he got upset and chastised Madhusevita for engaging me in such a menial task. Madhusevita came to me and apologized. He told me that there was a practice that when someone joined the temple, he was given various tough jobs to test his sincerity. I said that I actually liked the idea. I was starting my new life, and I was prepared to accept any service I was given. It was one of my first lessons in Krishna consciousness, that our life is meant for serving and pleasing Krishna. Our understanding lasted only so long, however, and one afternoon, when Madhusevita found me reading in the library, he ordered me to go out and do something. I knew that everyone was allowed to take some rest in the afternoon, so I told him that I was reading and would prefer to continue to do so. If he could not find anyone for the work, I would do it later. Perhaps no one had ever responded to Madhusevita in such a way, especially a newcomer. He flared up, calling me the most arrogant person ever. I did not argue, but walked right up to Bhavananda Maharaj's room and told him about how I'd been treated. Bhavananda immediately went down and again chastised Madhusevita, who became embarrassed and said that Satadhanya Swami had told him to keep me constantly engaged so that I wouldn't have any time to slip into Maya, the illusory aspect of the Lord's energy that takes one away from him. So then Bhavananda called Satadhanya and blasted him too, asking whether he thought he was running a Nazi concentration camp. From then on, things went more smoothly. The devotees all seemed favorably disposed toward me. I was getting closer with all of them, and Madhusevita and I were becoming good friends. He was a sincere and serious devotee with an upright and straightforward manner, and he did not waste any time. His commitment to Srila Prabhupada was obvious, and he was completely focused on his service. Initially, Bhavananda Goswami seemed quite exalted and unapproachable, but in time I became close with him as well. He was an impressive, vibrant personality, and with his powerful build and booming voice, he was a natural leader who inspired spontaneous admiration and respect. He was older than most of the other devotees, and whereas most had rather bohemian and carefree backgrounds, he had been a well-established and prominent figure in New York fashion and film. Just a brief encounter with Srila Prabhupada had led him to surrender and changed his life. I still did not have a steady service, so devotees from different departments would invite me to serve with them. Satvika Das, a young Italian who took care of the cows in the Goshala, the cow barn, invited me to join him. I loved the idea, but I also knew that caring for the cows was one of the most coveted services. So I asked Bhavananda Maharaj, but he said that I was not really meant for that kind of service. I was disappointed, but I accepted his decision. Then Hiranyagarbha Das, the head of the Gurukul, the children's school, and his assistant, Nadia Das, invited me to come teach with them. Again, I went to Bhavananda Maharaj and requested the posting, but again, he said that the service was not right for me. And again, I was disappointed. Teaching, I thought, was the best service for me, but he considered me unqualified for it. My pride was wounded, and I protested. Do you think I'm good for nothing? Any service that I'm proposing, you think I'm unfit for it? It's not a matter of your qualification, Maharaj shot back. When you see that the students are a bunch of village kids who pass urine in their beds and that the classroom stinks, I'm afraid your idealistic dream will be shattered. I had a roommate, Devotee Das, an extremely serious young American devotee. He never wasted it. If he had any free time, he would read.
बंद कर आने चालू कर तब गुरु महाराज मामन चालू कर आवड़े सम.
He would never waste a minute. If he had any free time, he would read Srila Prabhupada's books, and he took prasad only after he had finished chanting his prescribed 16 rounds of the Maha Mantra, which took almost 2 hours. I was glad to be rooming with such a committed devotee. My biggest challenge was getting up early every morning. At home, I rarely got up before 8 o'clock, but in Mayapur, everyone is expected to rise before 4 o'clock and attend Mangalarti at 4:30. Devotee got up every day by 3:30 and would wake me up before going to bathe. When he returned to the room, he would often find me still lying in bed and have to urge me to get up. I would beg him to let me sleep just a little longer, but he would grab the end of my mattress and lift it with me still on it, and I would have to jump out to avoid falling on the floor, both of us laughing all the while. Devotee and his brother had joined ISKCON together, but his brother had recently left the movement, and he was sad about that. He was very affectionate with me, as if he were trying to recover his lost brother by fixing me up in Krishna consciousness. Thank you so much for allowing me to read Ocean of Mercy. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. You reminded me when Guru Maharaj was staying with us on his last visit. I think, no, this was before his last visit, actually. Before his book was actually published, he told Gaurav this last time, because Gaurav was saying, Maharaj, I can't get up really early, something or anything like that. And Maharaj narrated it so nicely, and it was like so nice to hear how Maharaj explained, and then we find the same part, pastime in the book as well.
Vilasni, your sound is not coming through again. You need to get closer.
Okay, so I was just saying, Yadurani reminded me of that pastime Guru Maharaj stated at our house. I think it was before Croatia Yatra, or before his book was published. One time he stayed here and he told us about that. But anyway, thank you so very much, Yadurani, for stepping in at the very last moment and doing us the honor of reading Guru Maharaj's lovely, lovely book. So now, if I may just ask, we have amongst ourselves our senior god sister. Let me pin. So Jamuna Hen Mataji, very, very great welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining in, and we are really grateful. Just to give you a brief introduction about Mataji, of course, Mataji has been very lucky. You joined ISKCON in 1988, and only a year later, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj gave you the initiation in 89. And then that too, it all happened in New Mayapur Dham, which has got a special place for Guru Maharaj. And also that happened on the actual Nrsingadev Appearance Day. So, jai to that. Then Guru Maharaj also very frequently stayed at your house. This is in early 1990s. You even had opportunity of cooking mostly for him. The first time you cooked for him, that was a pizza at Soho. And then you've then gone on and baked many cakes whenever he came. You were also learning sugar craft skills, cake decorating, and then in 1995 you made his Vyas Puja cake in Medelago, Italy, and it was modeled on Guru Ashtakam prayers. So Jay, you've traveled with him in Europe, in India, then you moved to New Zealand, Australia, where you studied herbal medicine, naturopathy, and others. You worked in a health spa in Thailand. So, and then you had opportunity to spend so many months at Ujjain, with Guru Maharaj. So wow, lucky indeed, very, very lucky. And like you mentioned that he wanted you to teach. So please take us through the nectar of your relationship with Maharaj, and we are all ears. And again, a huge welcome. Hari, Hari, Hari Bol. So we're really pleased to have you. So all is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was only last week, actually, Gora Hari asked me to speak to the international one. So I don't know if some of the stories will cross over. I don't know if anyone already heard that, but
doesn't matter. We didn't hear, and it's absolutely fine. We are glorifying Guru Maharaj again. Even if somebody's good, I'm sure we'd love to hear all the pastimes again.
No, I mean, there's so many. You afterwards, you always realise you forgot so many things anyway. And also, when you're preparing for it, so many memories coming back, and makes you feel quite emotional, actually. And only this morning I was listening to I forget her name, our god sister. I remember her from years ago. We did flower arranging together for Guru Maharaj, and she was saying some things that also brought back a few memories that I didn't mention last time and stuff. But as you said, I was very lucky. I joined in Soho Street, Radha Landeshvara Temple in just about February, late January, February 1988. And about, I don't know, 6 months into joining the temple, they were quite sort of fast in those days. Bhagavat Shraya, who was the temple president at the time, he approached me and said that you should start thinking about finding a spiritual master. But at the time, it had not long been, Bhagavan had fallen down and other gurus had suffered some difficulty. So I was really nervous. I didn't want to make a mistake. And I had a picture of Prabhupada in the ashram. So I lived in the ashram for a while. And every day I would pray to Srila Prabhupada, please, Srila Prabhupada, help me find my spiritual master. Please, help me find the right one. I don't want to make a mistake. So this went on for several months. And during that time, Guru Maharaj would come through maybe 2 or 3 times and gave class. And each time he gave class, there was something obviously about him that I was very attracted to and drawn to, his softness, his intellect, his Vaishnava etiquette. He was very much into Vaishnava etiquette. They used to do a lot of lectures and seminars and things on it. So after several months, Bhagavat kept pushing me. And also he kind of wanted pujaris at the time. So that was part of his motive, I think, as well. And I went to the manor, and Prema Leela, also our senior god sister, she had actually approached Guru Maharaj for re-initiation. And she received a letter from Guru Maharaj talking about how he was her transparent by a medium, and that he would connect her to Srila Prabhupada, and that was his duty, was to just connect her through the line to Srila Prabhupada. And as soon as I read the letter, I just knew in my heart that Guru Maharaj was the one. And so then I made up my mind that was it. And I wrote him a letter, and then he happened to be traveling through England at the time in the December during the Christmas marathon. And in those days, there wasn't very many. I think he started initiating in about March 97. So it was like just nearly 2 years later. And he came through. And so there weren't very many disciples. There was 1 or 2 at Soho Street, but they were all on the Christmas marathon. And I was sort of working in the Pujari area, doing fruit offerings and helping with flower arrangements and things. And he came through, so I got to make him pizza. And then he called me in after I'd cooked him pizza and everything. And I remember walking in the room, and he was sitting on a chair at the end of the room, and he was like wearing obviously his saffron, and he just looked so effulgent, and he just like smiling at me. But he was also quite stern, and he looked at me then and he said, actually, you're not here through any qualification of your own. You're here through Agata Sikriti, through Srila Prabhupada's mercy, through prasadam distribution, book distribution, kind of, Harinam Sankirtan things. So that's how you've come. So it's not on your own merit. And so it's quite, and then when he said that, I remember he was quite stern. And then obviously it was very, like half an hour or something I spent with him, and then he left. And then shortly after that, Bhagavat started to push, like wanting me to get the first initiation. So he approached, and he actually wanted me to get both first and second together. And he approached Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj said, no, give her what first, and we'll see how she goes. So then we went to New Mayapur. I remember Gora Hari was there and Radhika. Gora Hari was actually, Radhika had been coming every day when we were at this man that used to come to Mangalati and to the Guru Puja class. But Gora wasn't into it at that point, and he came. I think he said he was chanting 4 rounds a day, and he was there. Balaram from Switzerland, he got initiated. I think Govinda got initiated. It was quite Leela Madhuri. There's quite a big initiation, and Guru Maharaj made us stay up all night and fast. And I remember about 2 o'clock in the morning, he was looking at me. We were chanting our rounds, and I was sitting there like falling asleep. I was like, you know, and he felt like he was looking right through me and everything. He was kind of again a bit stern and everything. So we spent a few days in New Mayapur at the time, and then in September of the same year, that's when he came to Soho Street, and that's where I got second initiation. And Minnie Kane and Gandharvika, they also got first initiation. Again, it was, I think, Leela, and actually Prem and Leela. It was funny, I was telling Gora Hari last week that when I got first initiation, I'd always really liked the name Jamuna. And at the time, you know, there was another devotee at Soho Street who got initiated a few months before me in by Shiv Ramraj at the Manor, and she got the name Jamuna Devi Dasi. So when she got the name, I thought, oh, I won't be able to get that name now. You know, I was sort of thinking about how it worked, but then Guru Maharaj actually gave me the name Jamuna Devi Dasi. And I remember my first thought when he gave it was, what would she think? So rather than thinking of Guru Maharaj, and I got distracted and I went to walk away, and Guru Maharaj was looking at me, he was laughing, and his shoulders were like, you know, they bob up and down. And Jamuna, you forgot to pay your obeisances to your spiritual master. So then he said, anyway, you can do it from there, because I was just about to pay them to Srila Prabhupada. And then on the second initiation, Prema Leela reminded me recently, we were hungry, we'd been fasting all day again and everything. And the boys went to get the Brahman, the Gayatri mantra before the girls, and they were about to serve the feast. So me and Prema Leela just sat in, started eating the feast. And the next thing we got a message to Guru Maharaj to go out for our Gayatri. But then he found out that we'd been eating. It was really stern, and we had to go and take a shower and change and everything before. So both initiations I seemed to somehow muck up in some way. But he was very sweet, and like he teased me a lot. We had a relationship where he would tease me a lot. And then, like you mentioned, he would stay at our house. We had an apartment not far from Soho Street in London, a penthouse suite, and he would stay there quite regularly. Quite a few times he stayed there, but it's quite small, so whenever he would stay, I would have to leave because we didn't have enough room for me to stay as well. And I remember at one time he was concerned because he'd just come back from South Africa, and when he was in South Africa, he would stay with another god brother and sister, and whenever he would stay there, she would have to leave because there wasn't room. But also other sannyasis would stay at her house as well, at their house, so she left quite a lot. And he started to get concerned because it became difficult for her, and they'd made an arrangement, I think, where they built an annex for her outside, so she had a place to stay. So he got concerned that I would always have to leave, not actually sleep, you know, whenever he would come. And of course, for me, it was a pleasure. I got another nectar, Guru Maharaj actually staying in my house, so I didn't mind. But he was, you know, Jamuna, you know, I'm really concerned. A woman needs a place to keep her things, and then her mind is peaceful. But I was quite young then, so I guess nowadays it might be a little bit harder. But he kind of knew the nature of a woman, and that she needed to have a peaceful mind. And that was one of the things I liked about him. He was also very caring and things. And you mentioned that I got into natural medicine, and one of the reasons I got into that was actually I was unable to have children. I remember at one point it was really disturbing me. It was quite difficult. And he looked at me and he said, you want something of your very own. And he said, actually, you have a lot of love to give, but that you want to give it to a child, but actually that love is meant for Krishna. And even if you have a child, that love is still meant for Krishna. And so he, you know, he's like directing me in that way, sort of reminding me and things. And then, like you mentioned, I remember one time he was sewing. I had a sewing machine when he was at our house, and he got some new cloth, and he wanted me to sew it, like to trim the edges and neaten it and everything. And I started. I'm not very good with the sewing machine and things, and he was stood over watching. He was laughing. And then he took over, and he actually started to sew the cloth. And we wanted to take a picture of him, but he wouldn't let us. But he was so perfect, even at this sewing machine. He just did it so neatly and perfectly, not unlike me, who seemed to like it was wobbling and I couldn't do it and everything. And at the time I did a sort of actually altogether 4 years part-time, but sugarcraft skills course where I learned to do, it was very early. I mean, nowadays at the manor and Radhastami and things like that, you see a lot of these cakes. It's quite normal. A lot of ladies or devotees have gone on to train in it, but in those days it was quite new. So I think there wasn't so many ladies doing that kind of thing for him. So I think that was the other reason why it became a thing between us. But every time he would stay, I'd make him a new cake, some technique that I was learning at the time in the college. And he would always come, and what have you done today, Jamuna? And he'd be kind of walk in and be excited and really observe. He would always look at the attention to detail and the techniques that I'd learned and things. And I remember he would often cook. I would cook quite a lot as well, but he would often cook and teach you as well. And I remember him teaching us how to do asparagus, and he'd break the end off, but whenever he would show me, and then I had to do it, I'd always become really nervous because I was bound to make a mistake. And he would just be laughing at me. And then another time I remember he was staying with us, and he'd had a Samsonite suitcase and it had broken, and he wanted to go to replace the Samsonite suitcase. And I was really excited. It was a Monday. We were actually in Watford at that point. And we went into what's now the Harlequin Centre, and I was like leading the way, and I was walking in front. The next thing I know, Guru Maharaj was laughing, and he's like, Jamuna's leading the way. And it was kind of like I took it that he could lead us spiritually, but there was me ahead when we were doing something in the material sense, and I was in front and leading the way, to take him to. Well, I'm trying to take him to John Lewis, actually, but I didn't realise on Monday it was closed. So then we found out it was actually closed, and girls was laughing. I don't think there was anywhere really at the time that was suitable after that we could actually take him. And he would always instruct when he was there. And he'd you could be swing between being very pleased with you, but also at times you knew he wasn't pleased, and he'd give you that kind of stern look when you'd done something wrong. I was saying to Gora last week, I remember one time Malini and Chaitanya Das had come over from Calcutta, and we were in our house in London, and he came, and she was singing, and he wanted me to ask if we had a tape recorder. And it was right next where he was sitting, and I just pointed, yeah, it's there, Guru Maharaj. He just looked at me, like I didn't click. I should be getting up to get it, to serve him with it. And he's like looking at me, and I kind of immediately, but the way he would look, sometimes he'd really penetrate through you and kind of, get right to your heart. You knew when you were doing the right, when you were doing the wrong. So, and again, this first Vyasa Puja was in Radhadesh in Belgium, and that was in 88. It must have been 89 it was. And then he didn't want to do it, and that was the first thing he said when we came in to the room, was that I don't want to do this. Actually, this is going to be a very big test for me. You're all going to glorify me a lot, but actually, if I even hold one drop of that glorification back, all that glorification is meant for Srila Prabhupada, and if I hold one drop back, then I've failed the test. And he said, actually, I really don't want to do it, but I know you need it, so I'm doing it for you. And he also said then as well that he would think, and again in those days, obviously there was a lot less, but he said he thought of his disciples, each and every one of his disciples every day, and he would think about them all the time. And it kind of became more and more clear to me how we, as disciples of Guru Maharaj, we would think of him and want that attention, but that relationship was two-way, that he would also think and care about us and worry about us. And like I mentioned, I had a lot of ill health, and he offered one time to pay for me to go to India to spend. I spent several times in India with him for about 2 or 3 months. And again, I would get to cook and often pizzas. I remember one time we was doing the GBC meetings, and I got to cook pizza with the GBC meeting, and I think I was running late one time at lunch, and he came in, and that day he wasn't so happy. I remember I was doing things wrong. I felt his wrath, as it were, with the oven and things. I can't quite remember what was happening, but he arranged for me to make the Mongolati sweets for the deities there as well for 2 months or something. And he was always, I remember when he offered to pay, I was in England, and I felt bad because he was my spiritual master. I'm like, no, Guru Maharaj, I should be giving you money. You shouldn't be paying for me. And he said that a father will always want to look after his daughter and make sure that his daughter's okay, and that there's nothing wrong, that he wanted to do that to make sure that I was all right. And one time I was telling Guru last week as well, he said I had a lot of pain when I had my problems, and I couldn't stand for more. I could take a shower and then I'd have to sit down because I'd be in so much pain. And he told me that if you really focus on your rounds and you chant in a certain way, that you can step outside of that pain, become separate from it. And one time when I was traveling with him in Europe, I remember I was actually able to do that. I was lying on the floor in Wiesbaden in Germany, and I could feel myself separate from the pain. I only was able to do it that one time, but it was interesting because Guru Maharaj was so kind of understanding of that. And yet he was able to kind of, you could see that he knew that. I only experienced it that one time, but Guru Maharaj kind of realized it in a sense. He obviously could do it whenever he needed to. And so it's kind of interesting to observe the pain, but not actually be in the pain. It's kind of separate from it through chanting. And so I'm just trying to think. I saw him a few times in Australia. I moved to New Zealand. He didn't come, unfortunately. And then I moved to Australia and he came. And one time he'd had jet lag, and I remember I bought him a remedy to help with jet lag and everything. And I went through a phase where I was going through some a marriage breakdown and some difficulty and things. And he was very concerned about me, but I wanted to finish my studies at the time. And then I went to Thailand to work, and then went to be with Guru Maharaj in Ujjain. And actually at that point, my mum had said to me that she was really worried about me, that I had, when I was in Australia, the whole time I was there, she would worry about me. But once I was in Ujjain, that she didn't worry about me again. She knew I was with Maharaj. And then 2 days later, Maharaj said the same thing. When you were in Australia, I used to worry about you all the time, but now you're here, I don't have to worry about you anymore. And then like you mentioned, I actually, when I was in Ujjain, had been in Thailand and everything, I wanted to do some writing because I'd worked quite a lot with cancer. And I wanted to write kind of a book about natural medicine and cancer and incorporating spiritual life. But when I got there, Guru Maharaj decided that he wanted me to do the cake decorating, the sugar craft, but I didn't have any equipment. All my equipment was still in Australia. And so I didn't have everything with me. But I remember it created some difficulty. And then he asked me to do Nityananda's appearance day. So I did the cakes for the Lord Nityananda and again, Yadurani was there. We had to make sugar flowers. We were making sugar roses. And he would come in every day, and not every day, but regularly, to see what we were making. And when I first arrived on the first darshan, he was talking, and he picked up his little phone, and I said something about the phone, because I had a MacBook Pro, and he'd had a little Apple iPhone. And he asked me what I said, and I just mentioned something about the phone. He goes, "Oh, would you like it?" And I was like, "No." It's like, "Okay, Guru Maharaj." He said, "Oh, I'll give it to you." He said, "But I'm going away for a couple of weeks, and when I come back, then you can have the phone." But then he went away, and he came back, and he saw me. I was chanting in the courtyard of Jane, and he walked up to me and he goes, "You don't need the phone now, do you?" And I said, "No, it's okay, Guru Maharaj." But then after Nityananda's appearance day, the next day was actually my birthday. And so because I'd been making all the cakes, and there's this whole thing every day, I remember, because I'm sure many of you have been to Ujjain, but also there's not so much service for the ladies in Ujjain. So Guru Maharaj, because he remembered this Vyasa Puja cake that I'd made in Medalago, he introduced me, did she make this cake? And it was in about 95, I think, for his 50th birthday. And he So all the girls started to want to make cakes because they kind of wanted attention in a sense. It did get a little bit political and it was kind of awkward. And I didn't have any ingredient. I remember one girl had some left over from previous Vienna's Fuji cake and he asked her to give it to me, but she didn't give it to me. And then she presented him this cake. Then he's like, Jamuna, you know, she could make this cake. Why can't you make this cake? I'm like, oh, I didn't have the ingredients for it. But anyway, so then I made, in Radharani, I remember she made a really big rose and it was top heavy and it would flop over. Guru Maharaj came in, he was laughing and he was like, who made this one? You know, he's often teasing and very joyful. But then when we did the ones for Gorpani, he wanted us to do one for Lord Jagannath as well. But we didn't have a proper kitchen. And also I'd been a pujari at Surrey Street for about 6 or 7 years. And we were trained, you know, the standard, especially at Surrey Street on the manor, would be quite high in terms of training. And one of the things we were taught was no one should see what you're preparing before you're offering it to the deity. And so we had to prepare all the decorations for each cake like a few weeks in advance. And the only room that was available had a glass window. And everybody would come by, the brahmacharis, everybody would look in and see what we were making. There was one devotee, I forget her name, she's also a god sister. She was getting upset as well. They're looking and it's not offered yet, and we can't offer it. It did actually get a little bit political, and it got back to Guru Maharaj. And I remember he wasn't pleased. And then the day of Gorpani, when I actually was making the cakes, we had no, you know, if you've been in Ujjain, you know, there's no hot water. I only had a bucket of cold water in the room where I was actually decorating the cakes. And we were doing each cake a different colour with butter icing. And there was no soap. So we had that, they would use the ash, you know, with a butter, cold water and icing piping bag. And I remember it was all getting really intense and I was like crying. And I remember when I did Nityananda's cake, Guru Maharaj was very pleased, and he came the next day when it got offered and he was cutting it, he would call me up and talk to me a bit about the cake, and he was laughing. But then with the Gorpanim cake, he could tell he was displeased. He wouldn't look at me. He was like, and I knew he was displeased because all that whatever had gone on with the politics the weeks before and everything had got back to him, and he wasn't pleased. There was some other stuff going on as well, and I didn't want to tell him. But then just before I left Ujjain, in Darshan, I actually said to him, you know, this had happened and I didn't want to tell you. And I remember him, he's really sharp, and he looked at me and he goes, what's the difference between you telling me now? You know, so he's really sharp because I said I didn't want to disturb your mind, you know, and he was like, well, you're telling me now. So it's like, so he's very sharp and quick. I really liked how he was always very sharp and quick. And then, so like on the day after Nityananda's appearance day, he had arranged for my god sisters to make me a birthday cake. And then on the Sunday feast, he introduced me in the afternoon at the Sunday feast in Hindi, so I never knew what he said. Then he gave me a gold bag, and inside the bag was I don't know if it's still, sometimes it keeps clicking. It's his phone. I've still got it now. And that's the picture that it was on the phone when he gave it to me. And also there's lots of I never left all of his photos that were there from when it was his phone, and there's videos on it. So I've always kept that phone. They'll never let go of it. So it's just so old now, it's tiny, you know. But, you know, it was Guru Maharaj's phone. So, yeah, he gave me the phone. He was really smiling when he gave me the phone. And so many things I can't think of off the top of my head. What else can I say? Has anyone got any questions or anything to prompt me?
Of course, Mataji. Thank you so much. I was just thinking, if you could just show us the phone slightly slowly and stay it on the things that we can just see. But I do recall, I think, was it this in Manor that he gave you the phone?
No, it was in Ujjain.
Oh, okay.
So that's all his photos.
Wow.
I mean, they're all of Prabhupada, obviously. So, you know, each one.
His hero. His everything, really.
Yeah. So I never touched it. I left everything as it was when he gave it to me. He left it, you know. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah. And then there's some videos as well on there, about 4 or 5 videos, Prabhupada videos.
Perhaps, Mataji, one time you can actually, you know, when we can have the program and you can probably play those particular videos.
Yeah.
And then that'll be quite good. And no, I just wanted to ask you, couple of things. I mean, you've started from how you were serving at Soho Street, and that's when you had the Agyat Sikriti or whatever you call it, and then you came into Guru Maharaj and he came into your life. Before that, I mean, I wanted to know, what was your name? Because Maharaj gave you Jamuna Devi Dasi.
Devi Dasi, yeah.
So what was your name before, like
Georgina.
Georgina. Okay, so
Yeah.
Georgina to Jamuna, nice.
Yeah.
And that, were you always here? How did you come across into KC? Do you have a very short?
I remember I was 16 actually. My best friend at the time, the girl, she had a Bhagavad Gita, and I saw the Bhagavad Gita, but I never read it. But I was very attracted to the cover, of Arjuna and the chariot and everything. But I would always pick it up, but I never read it. And it was when I was 18, I turned vegetarian, and then that must have been a year or two later. I met a friend who would chant, and they got me into chanting. And at first, it was the Krishna, what do you call it? With the Jamuna sang, and what do they call the album? Was it the Krishna album or something? And they had Govinda Jaya Jaya. And I actually started to chant Govinda Jaya Jaya. First, it was really weird because I was like, I couldn't believe that I remembered the mantra, And then my friend was like, keep doing it. And then he gave me beads in the Back to Godhead. And from there, then I stayed at the manor for my 21st birthday, but I didn't join. And I went back to Italy, and I went to Rome Temple, because I lived in Italy for a couple of years. That was another thing I got to translate a few times, someone who had darshan with Guru Maharaj who spoke Italian and couldn't speak English. But in Guru Maharaj was always very sharp. There was a couple of times I didn't know the word, and he'd always pick up, like if I'd said the word wrong, like he kind of knew, always sharp. But yeah, I nearly joined in Rome, but then my health wasn't so good, so I came back to England, and then I finally joined at Soho Street in 1988. I went. It was actually, I don't know if you know Mother Shashvani. She's a Prabhupada disciple. She was doing Pujari. I went in with a friend, and she was offering a fruit offering, and she immediately came off of the altar and after the arati, and came and got me and gave me a maha fruits and took me up to a room. So she cultivated me for about 3 months, 2 or 3 months. And then she introduced me to Bhagavat Shraya, and it's through then that I joined at Sachimata and Jayadev. We were at the temple, and I had my first proper darshan with Bhagavat Shraya, and then he convinced me to go to a program that night. And then I was supposed to get dropped off where I was staying. But on the way home, he said, you don't want to go back home, do you? Why didn't you just stay the night? And I'd already stayed a few times at the temple, and I kind of knew that as soon as I stayed, I'd start getting that taste again and everything. And a part of me, there was things going on, in my material life, and I was a bit nervous. I wasn't sure if I was ready to join. But I stayed the night, and within 3 weeks, I'd moved into the temple. And that was the beginning of actually living in the ashram. And it was,
wow. And what did your mom have to say about that?
Well, she was actually quite a Christian, and she didn't like it at first. And I remember when I told her I'd moved in, they really got you now. But now, she's like I told you, she didn't meet Guru Maharaj. She did meet Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. She stayed at our house, the last place that Guru Maharaj stayed, and she stayed there one time. I met Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and she really liked him and thought he was very intelligent. She came round, and like I said, by the time, because I went through some difficulty in New Zealand and Australia, she would worry about me. But when I was with him, she said, I don't need to worry about you. I know you're fine. So even though she never met him, and even obviously when the Guru Maharaj was leaving, and she knew, because I was talking to her a lot and crying, and she could really feel it. She really empathized. She knew that he was, because my father had died quite a few years ago. Actually, that was interesting. He passed away when I was living in Australia, and I couldn't get back. And the day I took my niece to the temple that day, she's 1, and I took her the day that my father died. And then Guru Maharaj came a week later, and I took her with me to see Guru Maharaj. And after my father had passed away, so my mum always saw that he was like my father. She did recognize that. and everything. So now she's quite favourable. She's still a Christian. She's happy that I'm, that I'm devoted.
That's absolutely fine, isn't it? As long as they're happy. Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada always never distinguish between. They said we're here to make happy Christians, happy devotees, happy Hindus, and so on. So no, thank you so much. And I remember I was asking you to give a talk in the February program towards the end, but then we decided, you said you would do it in March. And look, you've already given one before, but that would have been easy because you would have prepped up for this program. And Hari Prabhu said you would have said piece of cake, no problem, because you had a month.
I found it hard, actually. I was like, I was also quite tired. I know my friend, was supposed to go out, but then she had COVID and everything. I thought it's been a bit of a strange day. So she's not well, but so we didn't end up doing it. But
okay. Well, thank you so much, Mataji. We absolutely loved hearing the nectarian pastimes you've related to us about dearest Guru Maharaj. And what can I say? A sincere thanks. And shall we just do a Haribol for Jamuna Mataji? Everybody can unmute, and then we'll just have literally, I think if Mukund Hari Prabhu would just do the honors and do the Narshingadev prayers, and then we can end on that. But let's just all, thank you from depth of our hearts for giving us this great insight into what relationship Maharaj and how he treated you like a daughter and how he cared and wanted to protect you from everything. So, Haribol! Haribol! All glories to all the wonderful services you've rendered to Krishna. Thank you for coming. So Mukundari Prabhuji, I know I didn't ask your permission before, and as my mentor, you can easily tell me off, but I'll be grateful if you can please do the Narshingadev prayers for us and we can finish the program.
No problem at all. Thank you so much, Vilasni. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Namaste Narasimhaya Praladadaine Hiranyakashipur Vakshara Shilatankana Khalae Ito Nasinho Parato Nasinho Yato Yamitato Nasinho Bahira Nasinho Hridaye Nasinho Narasimham Adim Sharanam Prapade Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanupingam Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narsimhadev Jaya Narsimhadev Jaya Narsimhadev Jaya Narsimhadev Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Lord Shri Narasimhadev Bhagwan ki Jai Bhakta Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada ki Jai Nitai Go Premanande Hari Hari Go.
Thank you so very much, dearest Mukund Hari Prabhu ki Jai, for stepping in at the last minute. I do not give any notice either, or intimation, and last minute I just but anyway, thank you so much for being merciful. I have asked Suniti Mataji last couple of weeks, and hopefully one day she would also give us little insight into their relationship. Next program is going to be on 24th of April, which is the last Sunday of the month. And we are hoping Harsharani Mataji, Shakti Rupa Mataji, and I have asked Vyasdev Prabhu from Ujjain. Hopefully we'd be able to hear. And who knows, Suniti Mataji might also agree to give a talk. So until that time, thank you so much for joining. And we all want to say His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj ki jai. So please carry on joining, and thank you so much for joining to remember dearest Guru Maharaj. Yeah, thanks again. And if there's anybody or any comments or you want anything included, please feel free to contact and we'd be happy to accommodate that. Thank you. Any other do we have any other announcements, Mukundari Prabhu, Yadurani Mataji, Champaklata Mataji, anyone or anyone else?
I wanted to ask how Radha Vinod Prabhu is.
I did ask Champaklata Mataji to see if she wanted to give us an update. She's probably hearing us, or is she just gone? There she is.
Haribo. Haribo.
Hey, Judge.
Haribo.
I think it's Hare.
Haribo. Champaklata Mataji, did you want to say something? Prabhuji?
Getting better. Thank you for all your prayers. Hare Krishna.
Jai, Jai. Thank you so much.
Radha Vinod ki jai.
Hey,
It's great. Radha Vinod Prabhu ki jai.
And Archana Mataji, our god sister, she was also asking how you are. And she was so happy to hear that you're singing such beautiful kirtan. She was like, oh my goodness, it's so lovely to hear that you're singing beautiful kirtan. So she was so happy. So nice to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. So Radha Vinod Prabhu, for the next program in April, it'll be nice if you can start the program with a kirtan.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That'll be great.
Okay, let me arrange with you.
Wow.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Radha Vinod Prabhuji. And we're looking forward to your kirtan and starting off the program in April. That's 24th of April at 6:30. So thank you for that. And yes, we'll finish off here.
Vrinda Vilasi Mataji, just to keep on praying for Jahnavi Mataji's, for her.
Akinchan Prabhu.
Yeah, just to keep praying.
Yes, and I was also thinking we should all pray for even all the Ukrainian devotees and all the other people who are going through hell and back at this time. So all our prayers for their betterment, for their health, and for their protection. I'm forever praying to Radha Gokulanandaji to say, even the president of Ukraine, I just think, please save him from, not that we are into politics, but it's just the bullying element that, don't like, and that hopefully Lord Krishna would protect him. But yeah, thank you so much and all the prayers, and we'll meet again on 24th of April. Looking forward to see you then. Haribo. Hari.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rajesh Krishna Prabhu and Vrinda Vilasni for arranging this. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.